Okay, I'm on the wrong slide, but we're going to talk about subtracting fractions, okay? So let's see here. We just finished the fraction addition one. So here we have, if you're familiar with this, great. If not, we're going to spend next week talking about this too. But this is the addition song. You're thinking, why are we doing the addition song when we are subtracting? Okay, but it'll make sense in a little bit. But the addition song is same sign, add and keep, different sign, subtract, keep the sign of the larger, then I'll be exact. Okay, and kind of imagine it going to row, row, row your boat. So same sign, add and keep, different sign, subtract, keep the sign of the larger, then I'll be exact. Okay, it's very catchy. So anyhow, that's the addition song. But here we are in subtraction. So what I want you to think of is we have 5/3 minus 7/3. Okay, and that's nice. I kept the denominator the same. Okay, think of it as a positive 5/3 take away 7/3. Okay, and even further, I want you to know that anytime you have an operation symbol, like a plus or a minus sign, you're like, is that a negative sign or a minus sign? Well, it's both, because the symbol in front of the number, okay, belongs to that number. Okay, so this minus sign belongs to the 7/3. It doesn't belong to the 5/3. The minus sign belongs to the 7/3. Okay, so you think of it as like a, yeah, kind of who goes together. Okay, so here we have 8/6 minus 2/3, right? So the positive, the plus sign is kind of, we leave that invisible. We don't write it if it's positive. Okay, but it is there. It's just invisible. So the 8/6 is a plus 8/6. Then we have a minus 2/3. Okay, so it's a plus 5/3 minus 7/3. Okay, so think of it as, right, the symbol belongs to the 7/3. So think of it, instead of as a minus 7/3, think of it as a negative 7/3. And this would end up being a positive 5/3. And so that is like having different signs, right? You have a positive number and you have a negative number. And so when you have two different signs, like in this format, you're going to add, because they're different signs, we're actually going to subtract, and then we keep the sign of the larger. So let's go ahead. Who is when we subtract, by the way, we're subtracting the larger absolute value. Who has the larger absolute value? Well, you got to think of who is the furthest away from 0. That's the way to think about who is the larger absolute value. So 7/3 is further away from 0 on a number line than 5/3. So 7/3 is, negative 7/3 has the larger absolute value. So whenever we do different signs subtract, you're doing the big absolute value minus the small absolute value. Okay, so 7/3 minus 5/3 gives you 2/3. Okay, but here's the thing. What's the rest of the song say? Keep the sign of the larger. Well, 7/3 was larger and he was negative. So 2/3 is the difference, but we keep the negative sign. So the answer is a negative 2/3. Okay, I don't remember if I put it in. I didn't. But how funny that this over here is a negative 2/3. Okay, so this problem here, we're grouping it. So we have this minus sign. It belongs to the 2/3. So we're putting it as a negative 2/3. And we're adding the 8/6. Again, this is still different signs, so we still subtract. But this time, who has the bigger absolute value? The 8/6. But can we compare 8/6 with 2/3? Not yet, because we need to get that common denominator. So the 2/3 is really 4/6. So now that we're both talking and the both numbers are in sixths, right? Now we're talking about the same family, the sixth family. So 8 or 4, which one's got the bigger absolute value? Oh, the 8 does. Okay, so, and that's how you got to think through it. So 8/6 minus 4/6 ends up being 4/6, which reduces to 2/3. And so how funny that both of these are 2/3, except for the first one is a negative 2/3 because the bigger absolute value is negative. In the second example, the bigger absolute value was positive, and this one is going to be a positive 2/3. All right. So just wanted to share that. We are going to go into the next